Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having a great week and had a good weekend. I just finished working for the day. I had to go in for a little bit and it was extremely hot, like San Antonio, Texas weather is per usual. Today's video is answering a question that I get all the time. When I talk in conversation, I tend to bring up a lot of my job history, or I tend to bring up a task that I did at a different job. And the more you talk to me, the more you realize that I have worked at a lot of jobs. I thought it'd be fun to list all the places that I've worked. It is quite an extensive list. I think for my age, I'm only 28. Something to keep in mind about this list is I started working when I was 14. I also held multiple jobs at one time for many times of my life, not the entire time, but for many parts of my life, I held multiple jobs at once, sometimes up to 3 jobs. Also, a lot of these jobs were seasonal. Some jobs were seasonal and turned into a full-time or part-time job. Another thing to note is that some of these jobs I left because they were seasonal, and then I would come back. I would come back for another season, or I'd be invited as part-time. I won't go into the timeline of things because it just gets really confusing. But I have gone to many different places. I've worked at many different jobs. So I just think it's fun to go down memory lane and talk about all this. The last thing I want to know about this list is I feel like I have forgot a job. I don't know what I forgot. I have had 2 different friends review this list for me that have known me during most of the time frame of this list. But I just, like I said, it was confusing. There's a lot of points where I went in and out of positions. So I feel like I may have forgotten something, but that's okay. So we can go ahead and get started. My first job is at a snow cone stand. I won't name it because it's local and it's a small business, but it was a snow cone stand outside of grocery stores here. I worked there for 2 years. Probably the funniest story I have from there is I was a horrible child and I lied to get the job. I said that I was 15 when I worked there, when I was really 14. And so when I turned 15, he thought I turned 16, and he asked for my social so he could start taking taxes out. Well, I had to admit at that point that I turned 15, and I told him I was fine to quit, but he offered me to stay another year. I had a lot of fun memories there. My sister used to come and visit me while I was working, and I would just make her snow cones the entire time, so that was fun. My second job and my longest running position that most people know me for is SeaWorld. I started there in 2008 on July 4th weekend, so that was probably the busiest time frame to ever see SeaWorld coming in to the company. I worked so many different positions. I've opened a theme park with them. I also opened a different area, Discovery Point, with them. It is my favorite part of my career history. I have a lot of great memories and a lot of great stories to talk about SeaWorld, and amazing friends that I can still call friends till this day. Number 3 is Aeropostale. Everyone likes to call it Aeropostale. I would get in trouble when I worked there if I were to ever call it Aeropostale. I had to learn to call it Aeropostale. That was a seasonal position. I thought I was the coolest kid ever because I was working retail and I got discount on clothes. And then I learned that not many kids liked that store. I still liked it. I thought my discount was amazing. After Aeropostale, I worked at Hollister / Abercrombie. Majority of my time was at Hollister, but I did work at Abercrombie for a little bit. That is another company that I worked for a fairly long time for, I think 2 to 3 years. And I would work all the stores. I had a home-based store, but I would also take shifts at multiple stores throughout the city. And even when I moved to Orlando for a period of time, I picked up shifts in Orlando so I could work there as well. Hollister was like a horrible job, but it was also just fun. When I worked there, they had just finished their discrimination lawsuit, and so my managers would be like, "Do you have any minority friends?" Which at the time, all of my friends were, you know, a mixture of people. So I literally hired all of my friends to work with me. So it was like hanging out with my friends every day. So that's why I loved it. Another place that I worked is, I'll title it as a car dealership. One of my friends' family used to own a car dealership, and I would help them anytime they would buy cars from an auction. They would pay us for the night to go drive the cars from the auction to their dealership. So that was one car dealership that I worked for, and then the other car dealership that I worked with They weren't an actual running dealership. They would buy cars from the auction, clean them, get them ready, and then sell them at the auction again, or sell them to another dealership at a higher price than what they purchased. So they would just buy like crummy, beat up cars, fix them, and flip them to somebody else. They had a license to buy and sell to dealers. They did not have a license to sell to an average customer. So it was a little different, but really all I ever did with those people was either clean a car or drive the cars back and forth. And I love cars. So that was like the best gig. Again, I got to work with my friends from high school. So that was a plus for us. A job that I got my senior year in high school was Cracker Barrel. The reason that I did not stay at Cracker Barrel was I had already told them like, hey, I need Saturdays for SeaWorld. They told me at that point, you need to choose one or the other. I was clear the entire time that SeaWorld would be my priority. So as soon as they told me that, I said, okay, well then this is clearly not gonna work. And then I just dropped off my badge. It was a very simple transaction for me. At that point of my life, I adored and loved my job at SeaWorld, and there was nothing that was gonna ruin it for me. Little Nathan had no idea. I also worked at a company called Harlan Clark. I worked there as a temp agent, and I worked there on behalf of JP Morgan Chase. I did outbound calls, so it was like the worst position that you could possibly do. One of the team meetings, they talked about how everyone needs to be 100% into what you're doing, and they said, we are as strong as the weakest link, you know, very team meeting-esque. The leader was like, if you're not 100% into this, we should probably chat and see if this is not for you. And I remember in the middle of the meeting being like, this isn't for me. And she was like, thank you for your honesty. Let's chat after this to see if we have another position, or if we should exit you out. And I was like, yeah, we should probably just exit me out at this point. So next is Coach. I loved working for Coach. I loved the history of the brand. I loved learning how much detail goes into their guest service. I made friends with one of my bosses, Alex, and I just felt like he was such a special person in my life at the time. I just loved it. Many people will talk bad about Coach and how it's not a significant modern brand, and I will absolutely always stand by it. I loved the training. I loved what went into the bag. I loved what went into the craftsmanship of their products, and I will always love Coach. So at the end of my Coach experience, I left San Antonio and I participated in a Disney college program, and I worked at Epcot for, I think my DCP was 2011. So I worked at Epcot for spring semester, and I lived in Chatham Square, for those that are interested for DCP. People that are DCPs care about things like this. I did Epcot attractions. I worked in the parking lot, and I made amazing friends with my trainer. It was a great experience. I loved the company Disney as far as like their training, but I don't think I would do it again. So I'm gonna fast forward because, like I said, I would go back and forth to jobs. So when I came back from Disney, this is not the job that I went back to. I came back to some previous jobs, but the next new job is James Avery. I worked there as a seasonal salesperson, and it was really fun. For those that don't know, James Avery is a jewelry store. It's very big in Texas, very big in the military. Next, I worked at Alamo Cafe, which is a restaurant here. I was a server for all of 2 hours. I just posted about this on social media recently. The manager that was working there was just so offensive and questioned your intelligence the entire time you were there. After working with him for like 45 minutes, I just knew it wasn't going to work. So I left and I quit. When I posted that on social media, somebody direct messaged me and said, I know exactly who you're talking about. He is still there and he is still horrible. So to that manager at Alamo Cafe, I still hate you. When I left Alamo Cafe, I left in the morning. He had sent me on a 2-hour break at 8 in the morning, and that's when I knew I just was never coming back. I left and I thought, where can I go at 8 in the morning? And I drove straight to Starbucks. And when I walked in, I ordered something, and then I think I asked about my application status. I don't really remember perfectly, but the store manager had actually taken my order, and she looked over and she's like, oh my gosh, I've been meaning to call you. I want to set up an interview with you. And So from that moment, from leaving Alamo Cafe to that moment, I got hired as a store supervisor. I wasn't a barista, I was one above them. I didn't love being leadership in Starbucks. It's not really like leadership. They give you a book and they say make sure everyone does these tasks. So there's no real like, you don't really get to make decisions. You just make sure they're being done. So eventually I asked to be demoted to barista because it just seemed like a much more fun job. And it was the best decision ever because I loved being a barista. I loved working on the bar. I loved working with guests and not having to focus on any of the managerial tasks. It was so much fun. I loved Starbucks in that capacity. I should have just started there. It was so much more fun. From Starbucks, I went into a wedding planning company that is owned and ran by my friend Chava. But the company's name is Vita Chic Designs. It was locally based here in San Antonio. She made the move to Hawaii, and now she runs an amazing business over there and does these gorgeous weddings that are, every single wedding looks like it's straight from a magazine, and I am so jealous to not be a part of them. But she is a rock star and an amazing designer. And I love that I got to learn from her. I worked with her for about 2 to 3 years. And when she left, I helped out with some weddings here in San Antonio. After Vita Chic, I worked at Halcyon. Halcyon is a local coffee bar. Oh my gosh, the disrespect. My phone died and the sun is going down, so I had to figure out what to do. So we left off at Halcyon. Halcyon is a local coffee bar that I worked at, and I loved it. I enjoyed learning about espresso and learning the art of it, and it just was such a magical place. I loved when I left the company because it's one of my favorite places in San Antonio, and when I decided to leave, I started to not like it anymore, so I'm glad that I still love it, and I left at the perfect time. Otherwise, I would have just hated going. So I'm glad that I still have a place in San Antonio that I can like escape in. Just the look of it it makes me think of like a California Sunday morning, and then at nighttime it turns into this really cool nighttime space. Almost every day feels different because of the vibe that they can transition the place into, so I love it. From Halcyon, I went to go work at Whole Foods. They had just opened a coffee bar where it was like a full service espresso, juicing, smoothie, all these different things that they offered. I had such an issue working there because they had such a fundamental difference on how they made coffee. Both Starbucks and Halcyon, you could not let a shot sit there for more than 8 to 10 seconds. Whole Foods wanted you to pull a shot and let it sit there for the next customer to be ready for that shot. Mind you, a shot goes bitter after this 8 to 10 seconds, so I don't know why we were so in a rush to get that shot ready, but it just was so disgusting to me. I voiced my opinion a billion times. So in my first evaluation, she was like, they don't think that you are adapting to everything that we have going on as far as training and the way we do things. And I was like, yeah, I'm not, because you're doing it wrong. And I know that's such a dumb thing to be so like spirited about, but I was frustrated and it made me passionate. I was annoyed that people were telling me I was doing it wrong when I knew I was doing it right. Anyways, from Whole Foods, I went to go work for my friend Dominic. I was his personal assistant and salon manager at Salon DNA. It was a salon that he owned for a while. I feel like if you watch Barbershop, you'll understand the dynamic that we had inside of that salon. There was a lot of gossip, a lot of fun, people just, talking mess the entire time. I got to go to fashion shows. I got to help with his inventory. I could know his store order, and I also knew his food order. So I kind of just knew his whole life going on for a while. But that was really fun to be a part of and to work with a friend for quite some time. But it truly wasn't en route of what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be in hospitality. I love tourism. I love guest service. So from there, I went to go work at Hyatt, which was a brand that I really wanted to be a part of. It completely met my expectations. I absolutely love Hyatt till this day. I would love to, at one point, rejoin the company because I would love to open a hotel with them. Everything about the company I just admire and love so much. I had an issue with my leadership, and they stood behind the employees so much. The way that they helped and respected what I was going through, I just really loved and admired that. And that's kind of the reason that eventually I wanted to go into human resources, because I wanted to do that for somebody else. But I loved my time at Hyatt. It was very difficult for me to leave. I only left because an opportunity came up at SeaWorld that I just truly could not pass up. That was one of the times that I was going to open a portion of SeaWorld that it just was such a cool experience. And I am grateful that I did it, but I still miss Hyatt till this day. So my current position is the last new brand that I got to work with. I currently work at San Antonio Zoo. It's a nonprofit here. The zoo has been open since 1914, so it is really cool to work at a historical facility, specifically right now working through COVID and the crisis that, truly everyone is going through. To be a part of saving a historical establishment, it's really neat to think of, over 100 years people have worked here and have had a purpose here. So I do appreciate that piece of my job. So that is the final job on my list. Most of my jobs have something to do with tourism and hospitality. All of my jobs have something to do with customer service and guest service, and I just really love that realm. I love identifying who my guest is and what can impact that person's day so much. So I want to continue moving forward in that direction for my career. I don't know what the next step is going to be for me, but it will most likely be to impact a guest day, because that's just some of my favorite pieces of the jobs that I've had in the past. Thanks for hearing all of my crazy jobs that I've had. I think I listed 17. At least that's what I have on my list. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please comment down below what your favorite job has ever been, or if you feel like being negative or shady, tell me what your least favorite job was. I love to hear it all. And if you're not already subscribed, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I'm thebiggest_boss. I will see you guys next week. Bye, y'all. Guys, I almost forgot, but my song of the week is Time Flies by Tori Kelly. It's a cover of a Drake song. I have been replaying it over and over. I'm excited for her new EP that she has coming out. This is also kind of cheating, but I have an album of the week because I love the Chicks album. I mentioned it as soon as I introduced the segment of Song of the Week, but the album is amazing. I literally have it replaying all day long. I love it. I want to know if you've heard it. Comment down below if you love any of the songs on it, but I love the album. Let me know what you think, guys.